Hey friends, welcome to this episode of Coaching Conversations with the Enneagram Workshop. My name is Vanessa Fernandez, and today I'm going to be teaching on how to process our feelings and emotions as each type. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you know that I've been doing a series, sort of a lengthy series on this topic. And it's because the deeper I go, the more I find, and I just want to share as much as I can with you guys on this topic for a couple of reasons. First, because we can't heal until we've processed our emotions and our feelings. It's a roadblock. It's a roadblock that often we overlook because typically when we are faced with some sort of behavior or some sort of emotion that is uncomfortable and that we want to do away with, that we want to move past, that we want to heal from, because we always want to heal from pain. So when we experience that pain, we want to jump straight to the solution. We want to jump straight into action. We want to know, give me the steps, give me the tips, give me all of the solutions so that I can get out of this pain, so that I can get back to living my life without any roadblocks. So we often skip over the very necessary part, which actually in the short term can increase our pain and our discomfort. And this is why we skip over it, because we want to go the opposite direction. We want to get out of the pain, not go deeper into it. But the problem is feelings don't go away. Feelings cannot just magically disappear. Similar to the law of energy, that energy can only be transferred from one source to another. It never disappears. It never gets destroyed. It simply moves from one form to another. And it's the same with our feelings and emotions. So the only way to release feelings and emotion, to release trauma, to heal from the uncomfortable things that we're dealing with, is to release those emotions and transfer them and get them out of our bodies, our hearts, and our minds. The only way we can do that is if we identify them, and if we process through them, and if we give them the respect that they need and deserve. Oftentimes, the reasons we want to skip over our feelings and emotions, and this is true for every type. In my series on Instagram, I made the distinction that aggressive types, which are types 7, 8, and 3, are feeling repressed. And so those three are the biggest offenders when it comes to skipping over or trying to move around feelings without dealing with them. Those three definitely take the cake. But every type has their own form of sort of shortcutting and shortchanging the feeling processing process. And so the reason why we do that is because feelings, more than anything else, I think, make us aware of our humanity. Feelings are messy. Feelings require us oftentimes to lean on others. Feelings oftentimes are unpredictable, and we don't often control them. They just kind of surge up. They just kind of present themselves without us often wanting them to sometimes. And so feelings, we want to skip over them because we can't control them when we're not cognizant. And part of growth is learning to not necessarily control our emotions, but learning to manage them better. So we can move in health in that respect, but we're never going to fully be able to control our emotions, and neither should we want to, because again, that desire for control is a desire that comes out of a not wanting to be human. I don't want to feel things at inconvenient times. I don't want to feel other people's feelings. I don't want to feel and have needs and need someone else to affirm me or to support me or to help me work through. All of these reactions, these negative reactions we have towards our feelings, is a reaction that stems from, I don't want to be human. I don't want to have this part of humanity existing within me, because it means that I have to give up control. And so part of embracing and dealing with and working through feelings for all types is going to be a release of control. And any time that I help either myself or my clients move through healing, it includes processing information or processing the healing from all three centers of intelligence. We have to, and I always start with the mind. So we have to first understand what is right thinking and what is wrong thinking. And I posted in my Instagram account a number of affirmations for each type to sort of dwell on and start realigning their minds to believing these affirmations. And for every affirmation for each type, the words that I'm using are very intentional, and they're words that each type might not necessarily intrinsically align with or agree or believe in, because each type has their unique sort of missing message. Each type has a message that they don't hear, that they don't believe. And that missing message is kind of what keeps us trapped. So the affirmations that I've put for each type is kind of that counterbalance to the missing message. Whereas maybe type ones feel like I'm not good, the affirmation when it comes to emotions is there are no bad emotions. Emotions do not have a moral there's morally right emotions and morally wrong emotions. And for every type, the message is different, and for every type, the affirmation is different. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to realign our minds and see where we are believing things that are not true. For example, going with the type 1 example, it's not true that there are emotions that are bad and you're not allowed to feel certain emotions. There are no bad emotions. So that's a falsity that ones can tend to latch onto. So we need to engage our minds and decide what is not true and what is true. Once we have that truth that we need to cling on to, that truth that is not intrinsically known to us or has been forgotten by us, then since we've processed it with our mind, now we need to move to our heart center and we need to process this information through our hearts. And the best way that I know how to do that is to sit in meditation, to sit in silence, stillness, and solitude, and allow the truth to sink deep and settle in and be believed by the heart. And this is something that's a little mysterious and a little bit hard to logically explain, but the best way that I can sort of lay it out for you is the more often the mind has reaffirmed a certain truth, and for most of us, it's been the falsities that we have just constantly had drilled into our mind over and over and over again. The more that has refreshed itself over however many years we've been alive, that message, the false message has just been pounded into us. It begins to sink down and be subconsciously just embraced by our heart. And that wounds our hearts. And so the only way for us to sort of reverse that is to take the truth, the antidote to what the lies that we've believed, and do the similar thing. Sit and allow it to, rather than pound and wound our heart, sit and allow it to steep and be like a balm that heals our heart. So what I'll often do is I'll take the affirmation for my type, and I'll just pick one or two words that jump out at me that is significant to me, that really feels healing. I don't need to say the entire affirmation, but I'll just pick one word or a short phrase, and I will sit and I will breathe it in and I will breathe it out. And I'll do this consistently for about 5 to 10 minutes a day, as many days a week, hopefully 7, usually more about 5. And doing that allows me to not only believe and process something with my mind, but give it time to sink in and be embraced by my heart. So once I've done that, once I've thought correctly, identified the falsities, placed truth in its place, allowed it to seep into my heart, then I can move into my body and I can start changing the patterns of behavior because they're stemming from proper thinking and full heartfelt embracing of the truth. And oftentimes when you're on this growth journey, the areas where you want to grow, simply by focusing on them, simply by making it a desire of yours to grow and to change and to do differently and to react differently, you will be presented with, or you will notice opportunities for you to either go back into unhealthy patterns that you always do, or move forward. Now you're rooted in right thinking. Now you're rooted in a heart that's embraced that, to move forward into healthier action. And that's going to be different for each person. But the more that you are being cognizant of truth, the more that you are sitting with it and allowing it to percolate in your heart, you're gonna have an inner knowing of what is the right thing for me to do in this situation. What is the growth activity for me to do in this situation? And usually it's gonna be the reverse of what you typically do. So if you're typically, let's say you're a type 5, and if you're typically, when you feel emotions, you just want to withdraw, detach, walk away from them, then your work is probably gonna be the reverse, to stay in it, to sit in it, to allow others to see it, and to embrace it. So that's gonna be uncomfortable, right? Because the old patterns are so well worn and so well known and so comfortable. But the reason we're all here doing this work is because those old patterns, as comfortable as they are not serving us any longer. They are shutting us down to that healing. What I mentioned before about not processing our emotions becomes a stumbling block, becomes a roadblock to our full healing. Once we know that those old patterns are keeping us stuck, we have two choices: be uncomfortable, stuck in old patterns, or be uncomfortable moving into the new. Both ways are hard. You get to choose your hard. You get to choose a hard that keeps you stuck or a hard that moves you forward. And I'm not sugarcoating it and saying that this work is easy, because it's not. And I'm not saying you're going to do it perfectly the first time, because you won't. But I am saying once you see it, once you identify truth, once you let it sink into your heart, then you have the power, the understanding. You have some tools to be able to make different choices, to be able to move into growth, to be able to go the opposite direction of how you typically go. And I promise you, you will be amazed at the way that processing those feelings, allowing them to come up, not over-identifying with certain ones, but allowing yourself to feel the full spectrum, it's gonna allow you to move past roadblocks that you thought you never could. It's gonna allow you to really step into the fullness of your humanity, no longer resisting being human, but embracing it and realizing that there's a lot of good that comes along with those messy feelings. If you haven't yet checked out the series that I did on Instagram about feelings and processing feelings, I encourage you to go over there and check it out. There's just not enough time in these short little coaching conversations that I do for me to hit every single type and go deep into each one. Coming soon, I do have some resources for each individual type that I can't wait to share with you. But for now, head over to my Instagram account, check out the type that is your type, check out the type that is your spouse or your partner or your child's type. This is an amazing opportunity that you have to really sit and decide, how have I processed feelings and how do I want to process feelings in the future? The choice is yours. And again, there's no judgment. This is a journey we're on for life. If this isn't a time for you to be making progress in the way you process your emotions, that's totally fine. But at least when you are ready, you know where to find all the resources that you need to do that.